Welcome to the Crumb Show.
Welcome to the Crumb Show. Back to Crumb. Jesse Marquez. Chris Reynolds. And Jerry Joe Pesci.
Crumb.
Here at the Crumb Show, we delve into the Crumb side of life.
Crumb.
We're all crumbs in one way or another.
That's right, Crumb.
So let's laugh. Talk some shit. See what happens. What's going on with the crumbs this week?
Crumb.
Welcome to the Crumb Show.
Crumb. Crumb.
Welcome to the Crumb Show.
Welcome to the Crumb Show. I'm Fats Chicarella, Jesse Marchese, Chris Reynolds, and Jerry Joe Pesci.
Here at the Crumb Show, we usually get into the crumb side of life, but tonight's a very special episode. We have our very first guest. We're very happy to have Mr. SoulJoel Richardson.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
All right.
It's good to see you guys. It's a
Right
great
on.
studio.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. A lot of hard work went into it. I'm very proud of it.
Sounds good, looks good.
Right on. Try to be professional here, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right on. First of all, thank you for coming. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Got a little fame in here today.
Yeah, man. It's a little bit of celebrity status, hoping for that SoulJoel bump.
Who's coming?
But normally, here we start with one of Chris's crumb stories. He's our resident storyteller. He has a million crumb stories locked and loaded. So we figured we'll start with one of his oldies but goodies and see what you think, and we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah, because, growing up, I met a lot of crumbs, different crumbs, good crumbs, bad crumbs, mostly bad, though. So this guy, friend of the family, wife kicks him out, comes over, asks to stay. My parents say fine. He's a cool older guy, so I say, we'll hang out with this guy, but he's like, I'm tired. I just want to go to sleep, and kept pushing me to go. So I was like, all right, I'll go to bed then. Turns out I woke up.
He forced you to?
He didn't force me to do anything in bed. He just said,
Not this time.
Go to bed. That's a different story. Come on. But no, he said, just go to bed, and I'm tired. I'm like, all right, fine. We woke up the next morning. Our TV's gone. Our stereo's gone. We have 4 tickets to the Phillies game, gone. Like bunch of other valuables gone. Never seen the guy again.
How old were you?
Like 15.
Holy shit.
What a great guy.
Yeah.
How about that? Like, you got a family friend.
I never heard this.
Try to do him a favor.
It's fucked up.
That's a dirty crumb. That's like the dirtiest of the crumbs.
How many
They do some shit like
TVs?
that.
How many TVs and stereos I had to replace?
Because of one guy.
Not because of just that guy, but I'm just saying. So we were kind of like, guess it's time to re-up. Like, better TV. This
Well, this
time.
was still the 90s, so that TV was big
It was
as
still
shit.
right.
Yeah.
we were all
He had to
TV.
work to get your shit.
Yeah.
What was your stepdad's reaction to that? Because he's a crumb too, right?
Well, yeah. What? Yeah. Usually we talk about my stepdad. He's like the biggest crumb of all time, but he didn't. I don't even know what reaction he had. I think he was just angry, but he wasn't really somebody who could do anything about it.
Nah, you know why?
Yeah.
Because that piece of shit sold his shit with him.
Yeah, he probably got some of
I think
the
he was
money.
involved.
I didn't never. You know what? That's funny. I never thought about that. He might have got cut of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crumbs usually work together, especially the dirty ones. My old man would have been upstate for that. Definitely.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
But anyway, yeah, that's so.
Next episode, we're finding him, kicking his ass.
You just have to subscribe to the Patreon for that, though.
Yeah, well, like that. Yeah, it was in the '90s, but still, like, you try to help somebody out. Part of the family.
So if you were at the Phillies game 30 years ago and you seen a crumb in box seats, let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who were the Phillies playing, you remember?
Nah.
Especially was the Braves.
sucks.
It's always the Braves.
Yeah. That's terrible. That's goes along with the old saying, no good deed goes unpunished.
That's right.
Shit happens.
It's like, you can't trust anybody.
Did you said it happened more than once.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, did you kind of, know, when you had a guest, something was going to get stolen?
No, it wasn't by guess. Like, just we'd sometimes come home and our house was empty.
Okay.
It happened only the first time it happened. I was probably very young, and we just moved to Norristown.
Right.
And then the next time we were a little older, and not a lot of stuff got taken, but the TV, of course, and like some other.
First one was just a welcome to Norristown.
Yeah.
He must have really wanted it because the TVs back then were
No,
heavy.
but this wasn't the same guy though. Like that guy was just the one random guy we knew. We knew the guy. It wasn't like, we let him in. These other people were not invited.
Well, I guarantee your stepdad burned him before.
Yeah.
So he's probably like, I'm taking this shit.
And that sucks that some of your stuff got stolen, and a lot of people's stuff gets stolen in the hood. But a lot of the stuff we got fell off a truck.
That's right.
So you don't know.
The only thing that happened to me that was similar to that, I had a kid that came over. I had a Freddy Krueger glove, and it was right before Halloween. And it's one of those things where my mom's just yelling at me. She's like, "You misplaced it. You lost it. I knew this was going to happen before you start playing with it before Halloween." Looking for it. I'm like, "Mom, I swear to God, it's not." And I had a kid that was kind of a little rough around the edges over the day before. And just an epiphany, you could tell. My mom's like, "You don't think your friend Sam took it, do you?" And I called him, and he was like, "No, I think it's under your bed." And I was like, "Nah, dog, it's not under my bed. Trust me." My mom had yelled at it. I went down 3 times. It's not there. He comes over and gives it to me. He's like, "I'm sorry about that." He stole it.
That's
Like, that was my Halloween costume, dog.
Which is the rest of the costume.
Yeah. Yeah.
he came over and admitted to you.
And gave it back.
How old were you?
There was probably, we were still in elementary school, so it was like
Oh, shit.
4th grade maybe.
Well, it's pretty good for him for manning up at that age.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have had that in me at that age.
Yeah.
I probably would have threw it away and be like, I don't know what happened to your glove.
Yeah, exactly. Just ruin your Halloween.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty low stealing off a friend, but then he
Yeah.
came back with it.
Yeah.
And admit to it.
Manned up, man.
Yeah. I guess conscience got to him there.
Is that a bad crumb?
Yeah, that's a crumb.
That's a crumb.
But you know
crumb,
what?
but he
He
redeemed
came
himself.
back and he
Yeah,
redeemed
he
himself.
redeemed himself.
See, because like I said,
And then he became cake.
see how it works is like we say there's like little difference in crumbs. There's the crumbs that you don't mind, and then there's like the real bad crumbs like that you can't redeem.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
no
yeah,
redeeming them. Like my stepdad and this other crumb. Your guy, he's still a crumb because he stole it, but he's not that bad of a crumb because he gave it back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
once you steal, you're just a crumb.
Yeah. Well,
It's hard to trust.
later he would freeze his brain on nitrous at a Dave Matthews concert. So
Oh, okay.
Been there a couple times.
that was, that was just just a short insight of what would come
Yeah.
20, 25 years later. No, probably like 15, 20 years later.
It
Yeah.
happens.
That nitrous shit is a wild, wild world, dude. I don't know if it was last year. I think it was the year before. 2 years ago.
I was at the same concert, but different tailgate.
Oh, yeah. I dig it.
Different party.
Yeah.
But me and Jerry were in Atlantic City, and it was a weekend. There was a Fish concert down there. So as you're walking down the boardwalk, you just constantly hear psh, 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 and everybody had balloons and was huffing the balloons. And we're wandering around, all night up and down the boardwalk, and it was packed, the boardwalk. And it was crazy. It wasn't just like hippies with the
The
balloons.
beach is free. You got to pay for the nitrous balloons.
About it.
It wasn't just like the hippies you would imagine at a Fish concert with the balloons. It was like 10, like middle-aged, like 50-year-old executives with like button-up shirts and shit. I remember seeing a guy walking over, white hair, balding, double fisting balloons, waving them to his other, 5 or 10 middle-aged.
All the air his lungs can handle.
They call him
He was
yuppie.
waving them, and then they started taking selfies, like taking pictures and shit with this guy in the balloons behind everybody. And then later at night, we were walking around. I was probably
They weren't doing that at Woodstock, by the way. There was no selfies.
that. The next morning, the boardwalk was covered in fucking balloons. Not the next morning, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. All the crowd was gone. The boardwalk was covered with balloons, like confetti almost, looking like New Year's Eve next morning. By 10 o'clock, every fucking balloon was gone. It was amazing.
They
It
cleaned
was
that
like they
shit up.
attacked it.
So were the brain cells.
So were the brain
fried.
cells.
Well-
Exactly.
There's a big bulletin board. We went there not too long ago when we went. There's a bulletin board advertising nitrous, like flavored nitrous, like for like consumption. I think it's
Right,
like
right.
legal or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they're like, and they, I don't know why or how, but it was a big bulletin board, or not bulletin board.
That's just, it's crazy.
whatever it is, big is
A billboard.
Billboard.
There you go.
Thank you.
Knew you guys.
Be all right. I'll be all right.
You know, nitrous?
Yeah, I think, yeah. That's the problem. But no, and it was advertising that it was legal almost. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
maybe
I
it
don't know,
is.
but
I don't know.
at our age, we cannot do that.
No.
We need all the brain cells.
Yeah, we got enough bad habits. We
Right.
don't need nitrous.
Well, that's when I realized I was really getting old. When we were walking down there, and I'm looking at everybody, and I see a girl just sitting there, like damn near ready to fish out. She was like fucking 15. My
Right,
daughter's
yeah.
14. I'm like,
The old
oh.
Kensington nod.
She,
Yeah.
like when she looked at me as I'm walking past, we like connected eyes and shit. She like picked her head up. I'm just like, go home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then 2 seconds later, it started pouring rain.
That's the sad part because you see
Oh
kids
my
like
God.
that, and we have kids that age now, and you're just like, damn, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's sad. Sad.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Teenage years get scary, especially nowadays. Like, they're dealing with stuff we have no idea.
Yeah.
How to, what's going on. And
I'm just glad that social media and cell phones weren't around
Right, definitely.
because like I put out thoughts now. And I'm like, but then you just can't take it back. Like I was, we were joking around that my dad's coming back now. My dad, you'll never hear a white guy say this. My dad lives in China.
Oh, shit.
wow.
So he left was here to open up SoulJoels in 2019. Went home, went back before Thanksgiving. And then because of all the travel and COVID, he hasn't been able to leave. So I told my sisters, I go, I think he's coming. Because he asked me where I put my comics up in a hotel. And I go, why would he all of a sudden randomly tell me that?
Right.
And I joked around, and I'm just like the 12-year-old kid waiting for my dad to come home. Like, he should be home any minute now.
He's
and I went
coming,
like
I'm telling you.
yeah, and I went like this because my two sisters left to go play soccer. They have an intramural league, like over 40, or no, they're not over 40, but they would
Yeah,
kill
you're
me
in
if they
trouble.
said that. Yeah, an adult league.
Cut that.
God, I'm the old. Yeah, we'll edit this in post. We'll edit this. But I turned around, and my two older nieces were having so much fun. They were Snapchatting me, and they were just like, they were dying. I'm like, that was on film? I mean, I don't care.
Right.
Let it go viral. I could use the boost, but like, can you just live in the moment? Like I had my back turned for 1 second, and your poor uncle.
Yeah.
I live in the basement. You can't freaking let me have a moment.
Yeah, right.
How
Got to
about
kick a
both?
man.
Yeah. Just every second, they don't live in the moment. They're living the moment while recording it.
Yeah.
I'm glad that there
Crazy.
wasn't phones back then. I think about like how we functioned back then without phones, because like I live in Coatesville, and if I get the King of Prussia to go to work, I'll turn around and drive home to get my phone.
Right.
So you try to figure out like how the hell did we live back then without phones?
Dude, it was just like me coming here tonight. It's 1988.
Yeah.
Right.
I told you I'm going to be here at 7. I got to meet you here at 7. And then all of a sudden, if I don't show up, you got to be like, well, something happened to Joel. What, are you going to
Yeah.
text him or whatever? But it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you got to kick it old school.
Right.
Yeah.
Not only that, I can imagine having that access to porn when I was 15 years old. I mean, I would have no dick.
You'd have carpal tunnel
Yeah.
syndrome.
I don't know how these
Yeah.
kids do it today. Like
Stuck
just
like a
Jesus
G.I. Joe
Christ.
man.
There's porn everywhere. It's right at your fingertips.
Yeah, this generation's not perverts like we were.
Yeah.
They're a little bit different. They're perverts, but a little different than we were.
I guess that's what happens when it's forced on you like that. You don't care. You know what I mean? Like we had to use magazines, so you know.
Yeah, we had to catch a glimpse. Now
Yeah.
they can just look at it.
You had to work for it.
Yeah, you had to work for it a little bit. Sneak like a peek behind the counter at the 7-Eleven where they had it in a rack behind the counter.
Yeah, I remember finding my dad's Playboys from like the 70s, and like he didn't even keep them in his room. He kept them like under in the dining room. We had a hutch, and in the hutch bottom was like where we kept all our junk. You know, it was like junk, and there was fucking Playboys in there.
No shit. What year was this?
This is like, I don't know, late 80s.
And they were from the 70s?
Yeah, 70. Yeah, because before he got married, he got married 74. So
Okay.
We were still in Royersford, and I went to ask a guy, I go, this is your last warning before I throw you out of here. And he goes, oh, you're going to mess me up. And I go, no, I'm Joel. I just want everybody to be safe and have a good time. You're now interrupting other people during a comedy show. It's a listening party. People don't realize that. They don't need help. Just be quiet. He goes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you and your team free porn. He goes, I'm a porn producer.
Whoa.
Turns out he was like only like he managed OnlyFans, girls on OnlyFans.
Okay.
But I'm also like, dude, what is this, 1992?
Yeah.
Like, do you have a bunch of tapes in your trunk like it's Wu-Tang?
Yeah.
Like free porn, it's called the internet. I don't need it from you, dude.
Yeah.
I got a Wi-Fi connection. I don't need to get free porn from you. Like that's gross.
You ever hear of Pornhub?
Yeah, exactly. I don't need whatever you're talking. Like,
This one's my honeymoon.
right. Unless it's a passcode.
Yeah, right.
And with him, it was probably first one's free. You
Right.
get the first one free.
Yeah.
Oh, then you got to subscribe to, you know.
It's just wild.
Is that how it goes, Chris?
well,
So I would imagine.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
You know, we are crumbs. Most people, when they, our age, when they are nostalgic, like he was like, I don't know how we functioned. It usually reverts to directions and GPS. Like, how did we ever get anywhere without GPS telling you where to go?
Maps.
Goes the porn.
You crumbs instantly go to jerking off.
Yeah. Of course.
Not information. Every bit of information ever written down since the history of time is at your fingertips. You're worried about jerking off in a closet or a bathroom somewhere.
Yeah, that's because it was just so rough when we were teenagers. With the magazine, trying to hold one hand with the magazine, hold steady. If you lose the page, you're done. You got to start all over again.
Yeah, but
I hear you.
back then we had to use our imagination. Did you have no imagination?
Oh, of course I did.
There was plenty of chicks on TV like Marianne from Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
All the other chicks, you picture that. You don't need. You
Talk
don't
slower
need-
next time.
you don't
Nice
need
updated
that.
reference.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right. Thanks, boomer.
She's only 90 now.
I feel weird any other. I like to go older. That way, I don't feel creepy trying to pick like a girl that might have been at a.
You could have.
How old is she now? Dead. She's dead.
Yeah.
She is actually.
My old man only ever really had two like Playboys, and I got them. One is in Braille, the cover's in Braille, and
Yeah.
cool as shit, and the other one's Vanna White.
Right.
And
yeah.
Braille, what would a blind person do with a Playboy?
Read the stories, man.
He's
Great
feeling her
stories.
tits.
Now you're not technically a comic, right? Because you don't perform. That was a perfect setup joke.
Well, that's what they say.
You're like
Spanking
one's Braille and the other's Vanna White.
It, spanking it makes
Yeah.
you go
That's why
blind.
there's two. Oh,
Spanking it makes you go blind.
you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I didn't realize. Well done. Well done. Back to you guys.
He won't go up. He won't go.
He won't go up. Okay.
He's good. He's the sharpshooter here.
Unrelated.
I'm just there
He
for
won't go up.
security.
Oh wait, yeah, no, he won't go up on stage.
I know what you meant.
Yeah.
But for the listeners out there,
Speaking of porn, though, like I don't knock anybody for what they do, but paying for porn is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand how these things, like even OnlyFans, anything. Like I'm not paying for porn.
you guys really tackle the hard topics here.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. This is
The
how
hard
crumbs
topics.
think, people.
Well, all right.
This is how you think. You brought up porn.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not.
but I was
paying for
thinking it already.
I know you were. I seen
But
it in your eyes.
it's America, okay? Anybody can
Sex
make
sells.
$1. This is what, people are willing to help out, like college students or single moms trying to make a buck. Why not?
I think that's an excuse to pay for it.
Like whatever you need to say to yourself to make yourself feel better. But let's switch topics from porn.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what? How about that?
Yeah, we can do that.
How about
All right. How about we switch it over?
we don't actually talk about porn?
Oh, I was
all
just
the
joking,
time,
man.
Okay?
Dude.
I'm just making sure the listeners know. Yeah, this just happens to be.
But if we have to,
We got on a
we'll
tangent
switch
a
it
little
over.
bit. Yeah, unless you like that.
We talk about porn a lot.
Okay, we really do.
But as you guys know, the three of us do open mic night at SoulJoels at Sunnybrook up in Pottstown, PA. And tonight, our illustrious guest is SoulJoel. So we're going to get into some open mic comedy talk here and get Joel's input on this and that and go through comedy. I'm sure everybody has something to say. We all love comedy and comics and stuff. So, yeah, the open mic's going good. I hosted last week. We're in a revolving group of guys that host up there every week on Tuesday nights at 7, so don't forget that.
Did a killer job too. I might add. You did a great hosting last week.
Thanks, appreciate that. Appreciate that. It was a little weird. Like,
You were natural.
I know I never did it before, and the week I did do it the very first time, but it was just I think 4, maybe 5 comics, and I didn't really present it like a show because they all kind of just wanted to go up and just spit it out and get the hell out of there. So everybody just, I did.
But now you got audience members, which is what we had in Royers for. We used to have more audience members than comics sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a decent crowd this week. Last week there was a decent crowd. It's just a little different hosting, from when you're not that experienced of doing open mics and having the same 5-minute set. Because we were like beating ourselves up for a while. Like, I've got to do 5 new minutes every week.
No, that's the biggest mistake.
Oh, yeah. We found that out.
Yeah.
Memory-wise, it's hard as shit. But without there being many audience members there, it did end up being the same guys, the same comics that were there. And plus, it's a good practice anyway in my mind to just keep writing, because I try to write something every day. So it is a good practice for me to just keep writing and then have to memorize something on the fly. Like a lot of the shit I write it in the afternoon. Like I have the premises and everything, and it's maybe 4 minutes. I'm like, that's good. But then when I'm going through it, trying to memorize it, I'm like, maybe I should say this or switch it around. So I'm writing it like 4 o'clock for a 7 o'clock.
Well, that's why a lot of guys end up recording it, because sometimes when you're saying stuff off the fly or ad-libbing, it's not about what you say, but it's how you say it, and it's get to the funniest faster. It's like a 4th grade grammar lesson where you're like, what one of those sentences can you just eliminate?
Right.
And it still makes sense. So it's all about getting to the funniest fastest.
Right.
So it's always should be set up, punchline, and that rhythm. Set up, punchline. So even if you're telling a story, you still have jokes within that story.
Right. Yeah.
But sometimes you're like, oh, that. I do it all the time. Where like you're like, oh man, if I just say that, it would be it'd be a lot funnier.
Right. Yeah. I actually, in one of my bits is you learn a lot about the inner workings of comedy. I think they call it like inside baseball, just in their conversations. Like one of them that really drops a lot of knowledge is Mark Norman. Shout out Mark Norman.
Killer.
Love to have you here. But just in his conversation, because he's such a comedy robot, he's always just dropping little things. And like the rule of 3, I never even heard of that before. I read up on it.
What's that?
Makes a lot of sense. For some reason, 3 examples of something just makes something funnier.
Oh, I got you.
I don't know, but I try to do it.
I've actually never heard that, but I mean, it makes sense.
Okay. And then the currency of words, what you just said about cutting stuff out. I heard it from Norman too. The currency of words, like just cut out that bullshit and get to the funny part. Like you set it up good enough.
And the sounds C and K are always funnier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like saying Coke instead of Pepsi. For whatever reason, the sound makes people
pop.
has a pop more
Coke.
than Coke than Pepsi.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are all good tips, folks. Hit that subscribe button.
Actually, when you go back to what you said in the beginning about the setup, punch, I don't know if it was my first, I think it was my second time doing the open mic up there. And I guess from the comedians that I'm like into, I was trying to like emulate that style of kind of a longer story that it really didn't make sense or go anywhere. It was just a story with a couple things that I thought were funny. So then I guess you had seen it, and then as I was leaving, you were like, because I went up, I wanted to do it off my head.
It was the first thing you said.
Yeah, I wanted to do
You
it off
set
my
it up,
head.
what I said, set up punchline. And I could tell
Right.
you didn't do it on purpose, but it was
No.
what you said.
No, I did not have the, let me do set up, punch. It was just because a week before I needed my phone.
Yeah.
And when you look at your phone and it's not right where you want, it fucks you up and it takes a minute. So I think you also told me muscle memory is how you remember shit.
Yeah.
So I tried to remember this thing, remember it. And I said, I'm going out there with no phone and no notes. And then the line was, I'm doing this with no phone, no notes, and no underwear.
Yeah, see?
But I didn't know I was doing that.
And that's why I was surprised about the example of 3.
Right.
Because it's like example, punch.
Right.
Example,
Yeah.
punch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but you do learn a lot just from listening to.
Well, you're up there and you get like hecklers, and all of a sudden it just throws you off, and you don't remember. You're like, oh, I was talking about high school, I was talking about the gym, or your dick, or whatever. You're like the porn stuff that you do. You're like,
Right.
oh my god, and then you just like you get thrown off. You don't remember what you're saying.
Yeah.
I had that
So-
happen to me a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I had to start with Kat. She was still there, and I was like, I want to start over. I'm like, I got to get off. and I came back up and started over
Yeah, she let you go back on.
because I could not. Like, I think somebody laughed and
Yeah.
it totally threw me off. I'm like, oh, somebody thinks I'm funny.
That's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
The thing you want to happen.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
Doing.
Oh my God, that was a little too much for me.
To get back to what you were saying when we first started, you said that was a big mistake. So it's okay, you're saying, to go up there and do the same material.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think I try to do that, but like I try to change it a little bit. Like this week I went up. I missed a couple weeks due to things going on, but like I had a little thing set up and it was going good. Then I went blank after like 2 minutes. But like I'm thinking, but when I go back up this time, using that same open thing I came out with, but just changing up a little bit because now I had the feel for it. But then I'm like, these guys just heard me last week. If they come back, they'll hear it again. But then I'm like, this is what this situation's for right now.
Well, when you do a set and like you move along past the open mics, you should always, and you're doing like a set,
Right.
and whether you're getting paid for it, it's like a showcase show. You always come out firing and do your best material.
Right
Then you
from the
do your new stuff in the middle,
Right.
and then you close strong. So you always.
Oh, okay.
So no matter what, even if you're like, oh, I'm going to do the same 5 minutes, you want to always make sure you do one new thing every time you go up.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean you just always have to do something new.
There you go.
You know, and make sure. But you want to be able to. And actually, Nate Bargatze said that his philosophy was he would build at 5 minutes and do 5 minutes, set 5 minutes at a time. That's what your like late night set is. So you do 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden you want to develop it so that you can't follow your own 5 minutes. And then next time you're developing a new 5 minutes. Now you got 10 minutes. And then you just keep going, and then before you know it, you're like, I got a half hour.
Right. Yeah.
But you keep building at 5 minutes at a time.
Right.
But you want to just keep getting it tight.
Yeah,
So
but all
they're
this
laughing the whole
information, we're gonna
time.
Be stars.
Well, that's what I try to explain to people.
Yeah.
We're doing this 5 minutes at a time. Like, yeah, you're practicing at home and you're practicing, but until you're up there, it doesn't count because you're not in front of like
absolutely.
strangers looking at you, hearing crickets. Like, okay,
Well, and that's the thing. You have to have the long game too. Like the biggest misconception is it's not an audition.
right.
An open mic is not. It's there to hone your craft and get more comfortable.
Yeah.
That's why I made it
Right.
free.
Right.
And a lot of the guys got mad at me because I wouldn't be in the room. But that's not like, when's the last time you go to Helium or Punchline or any comedy club and meet the owner?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm the easiest person and I'm the most accessible, but it doesn't mean I'm because I sat there for a whole year and would watch the guys, but they're doing the same material, which is good, but it's like, I can't ever. Do you watch the same movie every month?
Right.
I mean, every
Right.
week.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
It's
You
it's a
always
big.
have something to do. You're bouncing around to that room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Calls
I mean, you pop in here and there.
Yeah, there's fires to put out. Yeah, exactly.
But like you said, it's there for us to, you know what I mean, to take advantage of that situation. You know what I mean, like to get up there, to get better, keep doing your thing. You know.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter if it is, even if it's 4 comics in the room, or like this week, I think there was maybe 15, 20 people all together in the room there, and it doesn't matter because you still have to remember everything. Your timing has to be on. It doesn't matter if it's 4 guys that you were just talking to 5 minutes ago.
Right.
You still fuck up. You still get a little bit nervous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's great to just get on regardless of who the hell's there.
Biggest thing too is, and I used to mess this up because I love crowd work and I still do it, but don't ask a question if it has nothing to do. So you have to make sure that you're asking a question for a reason. You set it up for a joke, and you got to always keep in mind that the audience might help you, or they might say something. So you have to always anticipate that they're going to say one or two things. Think about it. They might say yes, they might say no,
Right.
or whatever the answer is. They might say Coke or they might say Pepsi.
Right.
But think about it. But always use it to set. Don't go. Big gulps, huh? Cool. All right, see you later. And then you just don't say anything about it. You're like, why'd that guy just ask us about big gulps? You're like, no, use it for a reason. And normally, like that's how comics use it to set up the joke. Like, oh, you guys married? How long you been married? And you're like, oh, I just broke up. And they use it then to go into a joke that they had, but they're so slick that you don't know.
Right.
That's why you did it.
Right.
Yeah, you're sitting there. You're like, oh, Big J Okerson's a perfect example.
he's great at that, yeah.
Oh my God.
You'll sit there and you're like, you have no idea that Big J just slipped into a joke he's told 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But it's because he's talking to the crowd and then he just like, oh, I got a joke about this, and he slides right in. He's the best,
Yeah.
one of the best in the business that does that.
Yeah. I actually think he has a crowd work special coming out pretty soon.
Yeah.
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 That's cool. Yeah, he's
But it's just
good
an
at
example of how you always want to ask a question for a reason.
You know who else is really good at that? And I actually seen him at your place in Royersford, and when I seen it on there, it blew my mind. Russell Peters.
Yeah.
He's great at crowd.
Blew my mind too.
Yeah, I was like, what the?
Dude, this agent contacted me and goes, Russell Peters and DL Hughley want to come to your place.
I was at both of them.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, let's go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah.
And a little inside baseball is we got locked out by our landlord in Royersford when Russell Peters, I haven't even told this story, when Russell came.
No shit.
Because Tim Dillon smoked in the building.
No shit. So he
Yeah,
knocked
it wasn't
for
in
you.
the building, but it was like when like the
Right.
the door was open. So like it kind of smelled like smoke. And my landlord came in and ended up like saying you can't go in there for a little bit. And
Right. Man.
I'm like, dude, I have arguably one of the biggest stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Russell Peters coming in. So we had to rent an RV.
No shit.
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah. And it was wild.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, and dude, it was crazy. So he was going to like the banner, and Russell Peters was going through all the different things, and he goes, well, "Who is this?" And I go, "Oh, that's our landlord's company." And he goes, "Like the one that locked you out of the building?" I'm like, "Russell, all right, we're good. Just keep it going." But he actually, so he, like a lot of comics, came. Whether they were getting ready for a tour or it's their first show back from the pandemic or getting ready for a special, he came there to tune up for his gigs.
Okay.
So he came, did 4 shows, 2 Friday, 2 Saturday,
Right.
with no act.
No shit.
And just was, I mean, had an act, and he had done a couple of shows, but not big shows like that.
Right.
And by the end of the night, end of the weekend, you could see he had a tight
Nice. That's cool.
45 minutes, and it was just because he was talking to the crowd and going,
Right.
But it's Russell Peters. Like, and I don't mean like no act, but like, he had like the same, like he'd list the stuff that he wanted to do, but
Yeah.
it was amazing, man. And he's just listening to him. He's
Yeah.
such a
Funny guy.
professional, the nicest guy in the world.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
I've heard stories about him giving like Rolexes off of his wrist just because somebody would be like, oh, that's a really nice watch. They'd be like, here, man, take it."
No. That's his presence he gives to his openers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when they're on tour. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the guys that I know that open for him, they'll do a 10,000 seat arena in Dubai.
Okay.
So not only are they getting to go to Dubai, they're getting paid, and then all of a sudden they're like, and Russell's like, oh, by the way, thanks for doing this, and gives them. Oh, well, you're like, it was cool up until this point. Like we're getting paid to do comedy. We're getting a flight. We're going to Dubai. We're performing in front of 10,000 people.
Right.
That's like a sporting event.
Yeah.
That's not even comedy. Like that's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you get food, you get a hotel. You're like, dude, you got to still realize you're like, I'm doing this for a living,
Right.
and now I got to watch.
What a
Right.
bonus,
Yeah.
man.
$10,000 watch.
Yeah,
It's pretty sweet.
Always
Yeah.
wanted to see Russell live.
Yeah.
dude, he's and yeah, nicest guy in the world, man.
Is
Yeah.
Once I first heard about you, probably Christmas 2019. When did you very first open Royersford inside?
November 1st, 2019. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, my brother was there sometime around Christmas time. I forgot to ask him who he saw, but I seen him in January. He told me about it, and then I guess right when you had that Summer Fest thing there, I think I seen Ari was there, and I was like, he's got Ari there. I was like, what is this place? So I start checking it out. I instantly start buying tickets. I don't think you had a show for like 2-3 months that I wasn't at.
Wow.
Everybody you just mentioned, I was there.
Yeah.
Everyone. When I seen David Tell, I think I bought 4
yeah.
tickets. I
Love
didn't
to
even
see
know
him.
who I was going with. David Tell, that's my wife's favorite comedian.
Yeah.
And I always ask her, like, how do you feel latching on to who ended up being who basically every comedian right now says is one of the greats
Absolutely.
of all times. She's loved David Tell since, I think, before Insomniac. I've probably seen him 5
So
times.
do you want a couple cool David Tell stories?
Absolutely.
So I created the Summerfest, 16 days, 1 day for every week we got shut out during the pandemic, because I had just opened up. It was my dream, being in comedy for 15 years, and I finally left the Valley Forge Casino, opened up my own place. The pandemic hits, but it affected everybody. So I decided not to let it. I just got out of a breakup. I'm like, I am determined to make this the biggest thing, and I want the whole country to talk about this. So I created the Summerfest, 16 days in a row. I initially used to I used to manage Dan Soder, one of my guys.
Oh, shit.
God.
Yeah, so he was supposed to be in Helium, and the agent was like, all right, well, after he does that, we'll put the tickets on sale, but hold it. So he was supposed to be, and he ended up coming, but I put tickets on sale for the final day, the grand finale, 2 shows, and I just said, special guest, we haven't had, I put tickets on sale. I didn't have a comic. I thought it was going to be Soder, but I wasn't sure. End up being Dave Attell.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
End up being Attell, right? But I'm with James Mattern, and James was like, I took him to the mall, and then all of a sudden I get a text message, and he goes, Joel, it's Dave A. Give me a call when you can. I'm like, oh, shit.
Right.
Like, it's got to be Attell. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's that night. And I find out he's got like it's flip phone.
He's got a flip phone.
It's got a flip phone, so that's why he texted the way he did.
Right, yeah.
Like he didn't feel like spelling his whole. So he goes, all right, James Madden, and Louis Katz is the one that helped me get him. So he was featuring, James Madden was hosting, and he goes, and you got and then we got a guest spot. And I'm like, oh, guest spot. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Who you bringing? He goes, Joel, aren't you running a fucking festival? I'm like, yeah. He goes, don't you have like 20 comics just standing in the back? Grab them and throw one on the show.
Right.
And I go, oh, that's awesome. So I had Buddy Harris and Brendan Donegan, two of my guys, and Brendan had just lost his father. And he just said, he goes, I called him up and he goes, are you kidding me? He goes, I was just thinking about this. I was manifesting how I'm going to be on that show.
Right.
The phone rings and I'm like, you're on that show.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So Buddy did one show and Brendan did the other. And when I introduced him, and Attell goes, oh, Brendan, nice to meet you, man. Thanks so much for doing this. He's like, what? You're thanking me? And the other thing he's known for is he brings a bag of candy.
Okay.
And the second time he came back, it was right before Halloween. So it like looked like that's what he was doing. But he looked at me, he goes, this is for your staff. Make sure they know it's from me.
No shit.
And I must have had that look on my face, like I'm about to eat all the candy and not share any of it.
Right.
But he goes, the first time he showed up, he goes, what's over there? And he's like, we're like Spring City. And he's like, what's that? The Schuylkill River. He's like, what did it used to be? He's like, a yarn factory. And he's like, all right. And he goes up and he goes, he just uses that all in the first 30 seconds.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, that's what makes him so great.
He's the
Is
best.
like the fact that he just blended all that in together, and he's like, my career's gonna die between the Schuylkill River and the Reading Railroad on top of a yarn factory across from Spring City.
Right.
The crowd just erupts because they know like someone just told him that. But yeah, he had to like, and dude, one of my security guys is a guy I grew up since kindergarten. He's a Marine and a prison guard. And he transports prisoners. When he came back, he goes, Gary, how you doing, man? You still transporting prisoners? Now, I know, like, he has to take notes in something other than his flip phone.
Right.
But just the fact that he does that, that's what makes him great.
Right.
Man, he, like, remembers people.
Yeah.
And it's cool, you know what I mean? Because it makes you feel like you're like, dude, that's amazing.
Right, yeah.
And I do that, too. I remember people's names. I'll remember their birthdays before Facebook.
Right.
Wow.
You know, and it's just like, it's like, dude, it's like, it's crazy. I'm like,
My brother's like that.
Really?
Yeah.
It'll never give me anything on Jeopardy.
Right.
I remember it just makes people feel good.
Yeah.
I'm just useless facts up here.
It's same with us.
Yeah.
I'm so bad with that. Faces, anything. My brain, you would think I have Alzheimer's, or however you say it.
Okay.
I'm bad, dude. I'm
Hey.
so bad.
I seen
I'm so bad.
I seen Attell at the casino in Bethlehem last year, and after the show, me and my wife were just taking a lap around the casino, and I'm just walking, and she says, "Hey, there's Dave Attell." So I turn and I see him, but he had already passed a little bit. So I just yelled, "Yo, Dave!" He didn't bat an eye or turn his head, but Ian Fidance stopped dead in his tracks and turned around and just started waving, smiling around. And I was like, "Ian, I see you." And he was all happy and shit. I
He
love
is the
Ian
best,
Fidance,
man.
He's great.
I love him.
He's
crazy
another
as
guy
shit.
that just really helped us during the pandemic, and it was really
Really?
cool. And I love when he brings them up.
They did the bump
afterward.
and
Yeah.
mics thing afterwards. Yeah, they did it up there. Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah.
He's the best.
He is
Insomniac was a great show too. I love me and my brother used to watch it
That is a
every
great show.
week. It was a funny show. He was good.
It's a
back
shame
then,
it's not
yeah.
on, like, some people do put it on YouTube, but it's,
You can get it on Comedy
Pixelated and
Central.
shit.
Like they have all that backlog, like a Comedy Central app or whatever, and you can probably watch old episodes if you really want.
There's an app for that.
There's an app for that.
But that's where I met all these guys. Going up in New York and talking about open mics. My worst ever open mic. Okay, so I was in pharmaceutical sales, and this when I was still. I did it for 3 years before I went and did this full time. For one of first open mics I did was at New York Comedy Club. And when that was when it was still owned by Al Martin, who owns Broadway and Greenwich Village.
Okay.
That was his original club before he sold it to Emilio, who has it now. So I go and park, and dude, back then it was like $5 for 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, or maybe it was $3 for 5 minutes. Either way, it was not much time. I come out, grabbing a pizza, and I'm like, could have sworn I parked right there. I didn't read all the signs in New York City. My car got towed.
Wow.
Dude, so I was on the east side. I had to get in a cab. This is before Uber. This is 2006, 2005. No, 2006. So I had to take a cab, $20 to go across to the West Side Highway where my car. $125 ticket. $175 total was like $300 for a $5 5 minute spot. 5 minute spot with whatever it was, and I'm like, dude, this is so not worth it. And it took me like an hour to get there. An hour to get there, an hour to get home, plus the hour to go get my car.
Right.
And when I got it, there were so many cars that that had dust on them.
Yeah, because you don't even afford to get them out.
Dude, you couldn't even. You don't even know what color it was. There was so much dust on it.
Right.
It's wild, man.
Did your set go good?
Not that good. Yeah.
Did you get any material out of that though?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, enough to tell this story.
Right. There you go.
Yeah. It's crazy, but that's probably yeah. Another thing I used to do when I first started was I would pace like a panther, back and forth, and it's like, dude,
yeah.
I notice like now, like I'll just stand still, like it's just like it's one thing that you don't have to do, like your mind's on.
That's what I got to work on. I pace like crazy too.
Yeah.
I get so nervous up there, and I don't know why. Right before I said, I'll be so confident. Then when I get up there, I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Well, because I put all mine on YouTube, and I'm constantly like promoting my everything like I do, and this show and the open mics and everything. So I put myself out there.
Right.
So I get all kinds of critiques. Everybody's a critic. You should do this. You shouldn't do that. I'm like, you get up there and you try it. And then I said, I log everything in the back of my brain like maybe they're right, but fuck you anyway. You do
Most
it.
of the time, there's people hating on you because you have 40 fucking years of being an asshole to them about everything.
Right.
Yeah. Now it's your turn.
Now it's your turn to
suck it up.
So they're laughing.
Yeah, that's the other thing you posted about not being a comic. You're a comic, man. Once you go up there and you perform, you're a comic.
All right. I agree.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
it is.
Now you might not be a professional,
Right?
Because by definition, that means you got to get paid.
Right.
But
That's a hell of a compliment. You murdered this week too.
oh no, I'm not saying good or bad.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Just getting on stage takes enough balls that.
yeah.
no, I feel better about that because I actually that was our mentality, or at least mine. That like, well, I wasn't a comic because I didn't get paid, but I guess I like your way of
That's
saying.
why he always says you got your cherry popped. That's what I tell him.
But I start like back in 2000,
it all goes back to sex, huh? Sexual. Yeah,
2016.
seeing a theme.
At the RCO, the Running Comedy Outlet. I did 2 or 3 shows there, but it was so far. Reading was just too far to go up an hour away for 5 minutes. I just stopped doing it. But then these guys said they were starting to do it, and I'm like, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it.
Dude, that's the funny thing, man. When we were in Royersford 3 different times, a group of 5 comics drove all the way from Virginia Beach.
Wow.
Damn.
Virginia Beach, not just past DC in Northern
Right.
Virginia. No, keep going.
Right.
What?
And one dude, because the next day Louis was coming, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm coming." I go, "What? You're gonna go back with all these guys because they all drove together, And he goes, yeah, we'll all come back. Only one of them did. But I'm like, you're nuts, bro.
Holy shit.
For open mic.
For an open mic and then come back the next day to see
Louis.
Joe List and
Oh,
friends.
okay, yeah. That's
But they still came for the open mic.
that's
Right,
cool
yeah,
though.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
That in itself was crazy.
That is
Yeah,
crazy.
definitely. That's determination.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
No
drive.
doubt.
It's drive.
I tell everybody, try it out. Like what is the worst that could happen? What are you gonna do? Like nobody's booing you. We're all supportive there. Every comic that goes up there, I give them a pump. Like good job.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't. It's always about the support and keep confidence building, because when you go up there, like he said, you're nervous. You don't know what you want some. You're trying to get a laugh. When you get off stage, if somebody's like, "Hey, good job," it boosts you up a little bit. Like, all right,
It
man.
really does.
Yeah.
It really does.
Makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So then you want to do it again.
Yeah.
That's all about that rush and that
Yeah,
little.
dopamine.
You hear a little laughter, it gives you that little ooh, and then you get off stage, you want to go back up again. That's the key. But
Yeah.
if we were a bunch of crumbs and heckled the people and weren't friendly to them, they're obviously not going to come back. So
Yeah.
we want them to come back.
That's the thing that drives me nuts is being up in New York, you used to be only comics, no audience for the most part. And unless I went to Stress Factor used to always have audience members too. But they're just not paying attention because they're focused on whatever notes they have.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, just give each other the time of day. At least listen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you're caught in the thing. You're like, oh, was that joke really funny, or is it just dark, and that's why the other comics are laughing? You're
Right,
like,
yeah.
is it going to work in front of a real audience, or is it just going to work in front of a bunch of derelicts?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
And when you have a real audience, I think, we do it now we do it in the Melody Room, but before we did it in Gatsby's a couple times. And I think maybe third or fourth time I did it, there was a decent crowd there. And I guess the set I had was pretty decent that night. And then people were laughing, and just when they're laughing, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But you're still, because it was after you taught me that muscle memory
Yeah.
exercise type shit. You just keep going, but you're thinking in your head, and then I start losing track and shit, and it does blow your mind.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
it's a good time.
Yeah. But going back, you used to do shows at the Valley Forge or at the casino?
For 7 years, man. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah. And then the old owners sold it to the new owners, which is Boyd, and they built the Brigada, and they have like probably 30 casinos across the country. And I knew anytime they come in, it's like old with the out with the old, in with the new.
Right.
It took a year, but they had a meeting and they wanted to. They presented Thursday nights to me, so I thought, awesome, I'm gonna have Thursday and Friday. What they meant was they're replacing me with dueling pianos, and they're gonna move me to Thursdays, and it was a door deal. So I had to pay the comics whatever I promised to pay them, and then I find out what I'm gonna pay based on the amount of tickets I sold. I'm like, I've been on Fridays for 7 years.
Right.
I'm not just all of a sudden moved to Thursdays, and that's when I was like, and then on top of that being replaced by dueling pianos.
Right.
And what was crazy was upstairs was karaoke, and downstairs was dueling piano. So you pretty much have 2 floors of karaoke. Because dueling pianos is nothing like, I can't sing this, but I'll request for you to sing it.
Right.
Me and my girl are gonna watch. It's like crazy, like that. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, buddy, but it's like
He loved it.
That's the wild thing. So, but that's when I ended up opening up in Roars for it. But everything from here, from just leading up to this point, like I want to thank them, because if they hadn't pushed me out, it wouldn't have forced me to open SoulJoels, and it wouldn't have forced me to do everything that I've been doing now.
Right.
So I want to send them a Christmas card. It's a little late now.
Yeah. I was at a show. I guess you did a show there. There was a name for it. It was Jim Norton, Jim Florentine, and I think Vinny Brand.
Not Vinny. Oh, at the Valley Forge Casino?
At the casino.
I didn't
yeah.
do that show.
You didn't do that? Okay.
No, it's all right.
Well, sorry about that.
No.
But I don't know. I guess I was maybe 5 or 6 rows back off to the side. And I'm just, in my mind, I'm just sitting there. I enjoyed the show. Everybody was very funny. I didn't have, I wasn't in a bad mood or any of that stuff. So afterwards, I'm sitting at the roulette table, and my wife hits me on the back and says, "Here comes Jim Florentine." So she must have, shook her hand or whatever, and I turned around, and I shook Jim Florentine's hand, and Vinny Brand was just standing there, and he was like, "Oh, there's Mr. Happy." I was like, oh shit. Like, he called me out for just, I guess, having a regular expression, wasn't ear to ear smiling. So sorry about that, Vinny. I was having a good time. But going back now, when I'm at your place and I'm sitting closer to the stage where I think they could see me, I always have a smile on my face.
Yeah.
I don't want to get called out by Bobby Kelly.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Hey, dude.
Yeah.
Speaking of Bobby Kelly, dude, I have a list in my phone. I've probably seen about 50 different comedians. I never laughed so hard than Bobby Kelly this summer at your show.
Dude, and he's
At your
been
place.
talking about it nonstop.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like crazy.
Yeah.
And we actually, now that we have a couple of the shows, we have it set up in that Melody Room based off how he did his special.
Yeah,
the
Kill
Kill
Box,
Box.
yeah.
So we have chairs on every side of the stage so
Yeah.
you can hear the laughter.
Right, yeah.
It's amazing what he did. But, dude, after he went and killed, and that's why he only brings one opener, and his opener only did like 20 minutes.
Right.
Joe Russell, and his producer on his podcast, and he was great. But then Bobby Kelly ended up, and he had not performed at all. He had taken the summer off, and with his family, and went. He had a place, I think it's in New Hampshire,
Yeah,
Vermont, or something like that.
Yeah, the
Tiny
tiny
house.
house. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tiny House, right? And he went up there and murdered for like an hour and 20 minutes.
It was unbelievable.
Gets off stage and he starts smoking a cigar. I go, dude, have you been performing? He goes, not too much. And I'm like, what? Wild, bro. But he starts talking about like different levels of fat in the
Yeah.
first audience and all that stuff. And like
Yeah.
you could tell he's just living in the moment. Like it wasn't even stuff he had planned on talking
Yeah.
about. It was wild, dude. And he goes, this is the worst setup for comedy. And he's like, this shouldn't work. He goes, but you made it work, you son of a bitch.
That's it.
And he goes, I love it. And he just had it. He had the time of his life.
Yeah.
It was wild. Yeah. But yeah, he's a good comic, man. And he's been, so the reason why I got into comedy, I have a goal. I want to go to all 50 states. So my first ever, right after college, I went, my roommate, him and I went to high school together. We weren't really good friends, but we roomed together our first year in college. His brother was going to University of Tennessee, and his dad was living in Nashville, and then my dad was in Pittsburgh. So we went to both places. We did like a week, like 4 days or so in each place. Went to University of Tennessee, then we went to the Grand Ole Opry, with a lot of comics have taped specials at. Bill Burr did one of his last ones there. Went up seeing, this is 1999, George Carlin.
Nice.
Dude, that was my first show.
Wow.
And, you know, it's like,
Shit.
what, 5,000
Shit.
people? Dude, he murders.
He's in my top 3.
Dude, as he should be. But what? But at the end, he murdered for over an hour. I can't even remember if he had an open or anything like that. At the end, now you're in the middle of the Bible Belt. He goes, and I heard he used to do this all the time, not just with the show I was at, but he goes, if there is a God, let him strike me dead with lightning. And
shit.
literally, he's like 3, 2, see nothing. And what felt like 1,000 people got up. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
like a couple thousand at the thing. I think it's 5,000, might be 3,000, whatever it is. But
Right.
it's at least 20% of the crowd gets up and leaves. And he goes, and that's my time.
Oh, shit.
And you're like, that's what that, now I know what that was. That was, there's always 2 shows going on. There's one for the audience and there's one for the comics.
Okay.
And that was just for him. He didn't need to say it.
Right.
You're like, dude, that just put a sour taste in people's mouth. But that was what he wanted to do. That made him laugh.
Yeah.
Then
Pretty good.
I go back to school, and again, it's 1999. I'm a sophomore in college. My friend and I were on a double date, and we're just stumbling around the Village in Manhattan. And we go and play this comedy club. We're like, all right, we'll just go check it out. Ends up being the Comedy Cellar. But I don't know what that is, what that means. I just know it's a comedy club. I saw Carlin, but it was a theater. It wasn't really a club.
Right.
First show, Dave Attell, Greg Giraldo, Lisa Lampanelli,
Wow.
Wanda Sykes.
Get
Holy
the hell
shit.
out.
Yep.
What a show.
Louis C.K.
No shit.
And then halfway through, they're like, Keith Robinson was hosting, and he goes, you guys have been a good crowd. Please welcome special guest, Chris Rock. It just
Holy
dropped in.
Shit.
Jesus.
And dude, I'm here to the camera. I'm 10 feet from him.
No shit.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is what New York is about.
Right.
And then, dude, 7 years later, that's when I started comedy. And I was like,
Shit.
this is, but I never stopped going.
Right.
And another funny story. So that winter, 2006, I go to the Laugh House, which is not there anymore, South Street. Okay. Keith Robinson comes dropped in because that was his home club. Dropped in and went on just after me. Thank God, because I would not have been able to follow him. Right.
Right.
And I saw all those guys, and like, you know, you just see guys, and all of a sudden at the cellar, and they're all on TV, but you just see these guys keep going to the next level and become like stars. I had a couple of drinks in me, had no business. I walk over, he's talking to the owner, and I go, "What's up, Keith? Saw you at the cellar. I'm a huge fan." "Dude, you're almost there." "Hang in there, man." And he just goes to the owner. He goes, "Do you hear this guy says?" He goes, "He said, I'm almost there." I mean, well, that guy, he hadn't had a day job in a decade or more. He is a certified full-time comedian, no matter what your definition is.
Right, yeah.
Been on TV more times than you can count.
Yeah.
But this white guy from South Jersey is going, "You're almost there."
Right.
Oh my God. I wanted to just be like 8th grade and just crawl into a locker. I'm like,
Right.
why did I say that? Like, I'm not unsolicited advice. I'm not his mentor.
Right. Yeah.
One of the guys who has mentored Kevin Hart, you know what I mean? With like Two Ray and all these guys. And he's seen countless people just,
Yeah.
you know, make it.
Right.
He probably made his day, though. He probably thought that was hilarious, really.
Oh, I'm sure. Hilarious. I'm sure.
Speaking of Keith Robinson,
He came to my place too in Royersford.
Keith Robinson did?
Yeah.
No shit.
But and both his kids, his son and his daughter, were there. And this is right after the Summerfest. Oh no. It was Summerfest. He was at the first Summerfest. It was the day before Dave Attell was there.
No shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
His kids showed up first. And you know where he went? The Valley Forge Casino.
No shit.
Because he went to the last place I booked him.
Right. Yeah.
And his kids made fun of him.
I could.
I don't want to say what they called him not smart.
Right.
That's what they call it.
I can imagine. But Keith
Sorry.
Robinson, I just see it on a podcast. It's a little side thing. Joe DeRosa
Yeah,
just
yeah.
got a tattoo that says,
Is that
Keith
real?
Robinson stinks.
Because it looks real. It
He
looks
just got
real.
that. Did he just skank
I
that?
think he got it.
It looked
Yeah.
real, and at least on Instagram.
Yeah, well, I seen him on a podcast, and he wasn't talking about it. He was just, I don't know if it was Taste Buds or
Yeah.
whatever he does. And it was just there, and I was like, oh, shit, he really got a tattoo that says Keith Robinson stinks on it. That's all. But,
That is a commitment to the bit.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. I love Joe DeRosa, man.
Yeah, he's great.
I just started really getting into him. Joey D, next time you come to town,
Hit
you're in
us
the
up.
area, next time you want to go stare at that ditch you grew up near, hit us up, man.
I just seen that
But,
today. The staring at the ditch. They should have clicked
Yeah,
on it. That was
that's very funny. Have you ever been up to New York to check out his sandwich shop? Have you ever been up there?
I haven't
lately?
been to a sandwich shop, no. But yeah, no. He's headlined a bunch of times. Jeffersonville Golf Course, I had him at, and then Valley Forge Casino, and
Okay.
then he headlined the first Thanksgiving weekend
Okay.
at SoulJoels inside.
Ah, no shit.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's
Yep.
awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's what they made fun of me on. He was on. Well, Chris D was on Taste Buds. Just like
Okay.
I guess he walked in right before, and he goes, "Sometime this fall, you're going to be at SoulJoels." And he goes, "I was at SoulJoels before it was what it is now. So shut
Right.
up. It was inside."
Right.
Yeah, they're all just making fun of each other. It was pretty cool.
Well, all these guys now that are like, I don't know, there's a couple different levels of successful comedians. There's like the Kevin Harts and the guys that do arenas, but then the next level of guys right now, like the Normans and the Chrissy D's and the Yannis and all them, you kind of like came up with all them guys when you were doing comedy, right?
Yep.
And then once you stopped doing comedy, you kind of like started booking them guys or managing
Oh,
them
I mean,
guys,
I
or-
was I was managing a few of them. I was always like producing shows, and I produce shows in like 25 different states now, and setting them all up, and I would hit the road. And dude, I was James Madden. It was James Madden and Giannis and I were all we did 14 states in 2 years.
Oh, shit.
Right when I first left corporate America.
Okay.
And he kind of told me, he's like, you have the ability to be the best that ever lived. He's like, yeah, you could be a comic and probably do a good, like, be a good feature.
Right.
And get 20 minutes. I'm very likable on stage. He's like, but you have a gift of putting the whole show together and producing.
Right.
He's like, why don't you focus on that? And I'm like, oh, again, unsolicited advice.
Yeah,
Kind of a backhanded compliment. That blood's still fresh in my mouth.
Right.
that backhand. But it's
Right.
but he was right, and it kind of gave me the realization like that's how I can make a living and do this full time
Right.
by putting it all together. And and he said this actually with Bobby on the podcast. I don't know if it was on his or Bobby's, but he said, yeah, he's like, I helped him as much as he helped me because I created, he calls it ninja training.
Okay.
Because I would put him in a country club, then I would put him in an Elks Lodge, and then a casino, different states. And it's like, you got to make people laugh with the same jokes, but it's how about how you present it,
Okay.
or you start doing crowd work a little bit to bring it up, or how you introduce the jokes. But it helped him develop. you know?
Right.
And
That's got to be pretty cool though, right now, because I know you're a huge comedy fan. Besides, businessman, but it's got to be pretty cool to see all the guys that you came up with. Now they're like at the top, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's
know what I
cool,
mean?
man. Yeah.
it's got to be great.
Well, and I always tell people, like, I want to be the draw, and I want to sell the tickets, and I want SoulJoels to be the name. Be like, oh, it doesn't matter who the lineup is. It's like the seller.
Right.
I want to
right.
be like the seller of Pennsylvania, where it's like, doesn't matter who you're going to see. You just know it's going to be a good show from top to bottom.
Right.
So just go. But it's great, man. These guys are all developing their own fan bases and, Patreons and podcasts.
Yeah,
And
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's cool, man.
That is cool. That's cool. And how long were you actually a comic? Like before you said?
Well, you guys talk about me like I'm not in the room, but I still consider myself a comic.
Hey, I just saw you recently. Sorry, I'm not. You're still in the club, Joel.
Yeah. I was like, was I out? Am I out? Yeah.
But I seen you a couple minutes. I think it might have been the Jan
Giannis,
Papa
yeah.
show. You did a couple minutes, and I was like, I knew you were a comic, but I had never seen it. I was like, honestly, I said, I don't know why he doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Well,
was the on the show. We were me
Yeah.
and our ladies with.
And I actually went over to you guys and I said something, and you guys were like, "Oh, I don't know what you want me to do here, but our hands are up." Like I was
still new.
like I was interrogating you guys.
Yeah.
You're like, "I don't know what the right thing to say is, so I'm just going to
That's
put my
right,
hands
yeah.
up and say
I was like,
nothing."
"Woo!"
Right.
Yeah, you guys were sitting on the side of the right side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Again,
cool.
I remember that. Like, it was, yeah. But that I wasn't even ready to do that. And Giannis was like, "Just go up," because he does an hour and 15 minutes, 20 minutes, like
Right.
he just wants people to know that, like, he had a TV contract, and he moved to Miami, and he was hosting his own morning show.
Okay.
And then it was like the second year he was about to renew again, and he turned it down for a huge amount of money just to move back to New York because he wanted to be the best that ever lived.
Okay.
And he goes on that because he sees the people that we have coming up, and him and Verzi are friends, and Bobby Kelly, and he wants people to know that they came to that show. You're like, dude, this guy was the guy.
Yeah. Oh, his show was great.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
but
killed
and I gave him the tour of the property. He's so happy for me, and having my own place. But I showed him that there's the social house, and at the social house, it's got 4 walls, but it's got no insulation.
Okay.
And then there's the dome, and now we got the Sunnybrook ballroom.
Right.
So he went and checked out the social house, and he goes, "Welcome to SoulJoels, where we're almost inside."
Baby steps.
Baby steps, exactly.
Bring your coat.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I love them outside shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But that's the gift and the curse now, man.
Yeah.
People are like, they associate me with the dome, and because it's on the property,
Right.
people think that our shows are still inside. The dome. We had in October. It was unseasonably warm. It might have been the first week. It was either first week in October or November, and for 40 minutes, there's 6 people, 3 couples, were sitting in the dome for 40 minutes. I get 15.
Yeah.
But what happened for that other 25? Like, where are the comics?
Right.
Where's the other audience members? Where's Joel? This is not hide and go seek.
Send one of them out to see what's going on, and you guys, like, if you're like, oh, I don't want
Yeah,
this anything.
there was a wedding going on. Like, there's lights on in the property, and I'm like,
we were there for the wedding, one of them anyway.
yeah, but it's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's like how
Where'd you have Rich Voss?
Voss was in the melody room, and we got a bad review. Not a bad review. The lady gave us 4 stars, and she goes, it was worth. She bought the VIP tickets. It was worth the VIP tickets. She said the drinks were a little pricey, but I don't even. And we pour heavy. It's like that's crazy. But she's like, the headliner really relied on the room a lot and making fun of the situation a little too much. It's like, that's Voss.
Yeah.
Like that's his whole act. And I like I'm going back and forth and with him, and I'm like, he made fun of me, and we just had that one backdrop. And like the nothing else is decorated. Like you guys have this room more decorated than I do, right? and I go, shut up, Voss. I haven't paid you. And he goes, don't need to pay me. I have memories that are gonna last forever. And you're like, stuff like that. It's just, dude, he just destroyed, man.
Yeah.
And I lit him at 50 because that's what he told me to do. Because the guys always say light me, so they know like, all right, you're gonna get paid now. But then you can go as long as you want, man. Like. No one's going to complain. This is too much show.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude, he ends up doing it again, an hour and 19.
No shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And it just kept going and going. And he was just having so much fun.
Right.
And dude, the first time it was him and Voss, him and Florentine came down together when we're still in Royersford. But I was so busy that I wasn't getting a date back to him. And he goes, are you going to give me a date or should I tell myself to go fuck myself? Like he's already like on with it, like self-deprecating.
Yeah.
And he was at the Brigada. And he was at the Brigada Thursday, Friday, and then he was dark Saturday at the Brigada Sunday. So what happens is they still get paid that night. But then they have their hotel room. But if you want, you can go do another gig. So he came to my place and he did a video. And that's why we decided to do it. And I asked him, he's in Planet Fitness. And all of a sudden he goes, I'm at the gym getting ready for SoulJoels. And you're like, that's obviously the first joke because he's not a Chippendale. He's keeping his clothes on. And he goes, I'm going to be in Potts. He didn't say Pottsville. He said
He did say something. He said it on Facebook. It was something like Pottsville or Potterstown.
Dude, people lost their mind. And dude, half the comments were, if this guy can't get the name right, I'm not supporting him. People I've never even met, never been to a show. Dude, but the algorithms and people like were commenting back and like one guy that always comes to shows, he was like, you entitled, and he said something I'm not going to say on the podcast, but it just, dude, that many comments, it sold the show out.
Nice.
Wow.
It was
Awesome.
wild.
Yeah.
And it was the craziest thing. And I'm like, the 30-second, it just outsold any other thing. And it was amazing. And the crowd was hot.
Okay.
Does that happen a lot to you? Like if a comic's like doing a show, like say the Brigada, and they got a free night, they just hit you up out of the blue?
I mean, that was just an example, but like a lot of guys, I mean, it's routing. So if they're going to be in the area, like they'd rather do it. But I mean, that doesn't happen often. But yeah, a lot of the guys, like, they're going to do like, Baltimore, like they'll take a night with me or whatever, you know what I mean? Like as long as it's not competing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's great. I love it. But yeah, that happens a lot.
Did you say a minute ago your first comedy show was George Carlin at that theater?
That's the theater. Yeah. That's the first
That was
one I
your
ever
very
went.
first
Because I was
show?
only 19 years old.
My very first comedy show was also George Carlin.
Where at?
Well, in true Crumb fashion, and my older brother Eric, shout out Eric, had a job as a maintenance man at the old Valley Forge Music Fair over in Devon.
Okay. And then the music fair moved to Valley Forge Casino.
Right. Well, he was a maintenance
The
man.
old convention center.
Right, yeah. Well, he was a maintenance man for there, and I was only like maybe 12. So we snuck in the back door in true Crumb fashion and just found some seats, and we just sat in the back row there. I seen George Carlin twice there, Rodney Dangerfield once,
What?
and Howie Mandel.
Oh man,
Holy
I'm jealous.
shit.
Yeah,
I'm
like
jealous.
12 years
You
old.
see Carlin and Dangerfield?
Yeah,
jealous.
seen
Holy
Carlin twice.
shit.
Yeah. I've seen all the
Dangerfield's up
legends.
there for me too.
That's what I'm
cool,
saying. We
man.
were talking about our favorite
Chappelle
comics
and,
earlier.
like-
I didn't even think of
Well,
Dangerfield.
When he
Yeah,
just
we'll
started
do that
doing
still.
theaters, I guess I seen him in Upper Darby
Okay.
in like 97 or something like that.
What was that, the Tower?
Yeah, Tower. Yeah.
Wow.
You're like when he first started, dude, he was selling out
Theaters.
theaters.
No, when he first started doing theaters, I think. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, because I had, I'm talking stupid. I had seen him on Comedy Central, so he was already doing probably doing theaters for years.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was before the Chappelle Show and all that. Yeah, and I have a list. I just like to keep track of who I did. I seen basically all my favorite comedians. I seen Attell up there with you.
Yeah.
I seen Dice twice with you.
Yep.
And between Dice and Rodney, I'd have to make them fight to figure out who's my favorite.
dude. So funny Joe DeRosa story. So he was on Opie and Anthony. And he promoted my show, and it was before I went to Valley Forge Casino. I was at PJ Ryan's in the basement of Phoenixville.
Okay.
I did once a month show, and because he promoted it on there, one of my friends I grew up with, he was like 4 years older than me. His parents ended up moving to Reading out here, Moton, and so we reconnected because of that. He was Joe DeRosa, so he came to that show, which ended up being 9 years ago.
No shit.
And now he's been coming to shows ever since, brings all these people, and he keeps a list, and he posted it about it. And it was because of Joe DeRosa. But now we're connected on Facebook and everything like that. And he went into the military and in the army and stuff like that. And so he posted about every comic and every show he's been to, and he's like, thanks for getting me through the pandemic. It's crazy how many people. This one guy who came, she opened for Eleanor Kerrigan, and he's from the area, but he lives in upstate New York in Rochester.
Okay.
His sister ends up 5,000 people is one of the people that lives in Royersford. Wild.
Yeah.
But his name is Greg Owens.
Okay.
On the paper, he put Gary Owens, which is a comic who has 2 million followers.
Right, yeah.
And he sees it because he's friends with me on Facebook, and he goes, "Oh, this is awesome! I can't believe I made the list." Although my name's misspelled, and you made me a headliner,
right.
I'm not mad.
Right.
Yeah, but it was really cool.
That's cool.
Because a lot of times, guys, you remember who the headliner was, but you don't remember who the openers are.
Right. Yeah.
Which is why I started going by SoulJoel.
I was wondering how that came about.
Yeah. So so when I started first doing open mics, my last name is Richardson. It's not very hard, but it's a lot of syllables. So the first guy would host would say, "Keep it going for Joel Richards." And I'm like, damn, man.
Right.
I was like, I gotta do something to just separate me from all these other white male comics.
Yeah.
So SoulJoel was my nickname in high school when I used to dance every time I scored. Playing soccer, I didn't score that much. I would do "Come On Ride the Train."
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and 90s, and people was like, "Why are you always dancing, SoulJoel?" Just because it rhymes, and it just kind of stuck. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bring that back, and I started going by SoulJoel, and then a year later, I started SoulJoel Productions. And I do, trust me, and I marketed it, always wore the shirts, and people made fun of me like crazy.
Right.
But I stuck with it, man, and branding, and it's just paid off.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
Somebody made fun of me because they're like, "You use your real name." I'm like, "What other name do I have? Like, What the hell? Like, I'm not a prop comic. I'm not like gonna I'm not a clown. I mean,
not
that I'm saying like calling yourself like a stage name, but I mean, I don't have like SoulJoel. You got that nickname. Like, my nickname is Reynolds, so it's the same thing. That's what people call me. So I don't want to like call myself like Spiffy or something like weird. What am I supposed to call? Like, you know what I mean? I just want to call myself by my name. That's fine. I don't care. Like, what were you about to say?
But being a comic is not like being a rapper. Like,
right.
We don't need.
But like, you were able to use SoulJoel, and that stuck.
Yeah.
Like I said, my nickname is Reynolds, so I go by.
Well,
Chris
it's the
Reynolds,
same.
so
It's the same as your voice. Like you were saying, you emulate, and it's always a habit or easy to like kind of try to act like someone. Like I would do the same thing when I first started. Like, but eventually you find your own voice.
Right. Yeah.
And it's cool. But same thing with going by a nickname. Just be who you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't worry about what other people like. If you have a nickname, you have a nickname.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But SoulJoel, that's more. I guess I get it. Like when you hear SoulJoel, that's going to stick in your head.
Yeah.
Chris Reynolds is like.
Well, the other thing
John
is
Smith.
If it's hard to pronounce or it's hard to spell, sometimes people will like use their middle name or they'll chop their last name and it's like some Polish
right,
and they'll just use another name. But that's the only reason. I think other than that, just go by your real name.
Oh, that's what I'm. But yeah, like I don't really worry about what other people think. The problem is I get a whole lot. Like I said, I put myself out there. So after you hear things for a while, like even if you're like, I'm not going to care, you see a bunch of the same comments. Maybe they have a point, or maybe you start thinking about it a little bit. You have your your train of thought, but like I say, after you read a bunch of comments or get a bunch of critique, kind of affects you a little bit, I would think.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Man, I still. I mean, you have to have thick skin, but I always read comments, man. And like we just got blasted about the drag brunch that we do, and we have it's bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys, and I found out afterwards it's the fourth one we did. Never had so many Bloody Marys. It's normally all mimosas, but it's because 3 or 4 girls convinced their husbands to come because it was bottomless Bloody Marys. We ran out of Bloody Marys in 20 minutes.
Wow.
It's supposed to be 2 hours.
Right.
But the guy, and it was no reviews. They only left 1 review. They had no profile, no other reviews. Name wasn't even on the list as far as name. So I know it's kind of suspicious.
Right. Yeah.
But said, they weren't prepared and it took a half hour to get a drink. But meanwhile, instead of having it 2 hours, I let the free bottomless drinks go for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Wow.
So I gave people an extra like 20 to 30 minutes when they shouldn't have had it. Let people in early. It's crazy, but you know what? People want to have their voice heard, and there's always a reason behind it. But I responded publicly, and you know, hopefully his answer, he understands where I'm coming from. But everyone's got an opinion, but they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. And nowadays it's so easy for people to give their opinion while they're taking a shit and just go about their daily life, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like they're actually coming in your face and that you have your rebuttal right then and there.
Yeah. Well, and they also said, they like, my brother-in-law is the chef. He's the executive chef, and he's been a chef for longer than I've been in comedy.
Okay.
So he's been like in the kitchen for 20 years, and they like ridiculed the food and said, I guess that's why there was so much left over. And it's like, no, it's like, it's a buffet.
Right.
So we actually prepared. We had 110 people, but we made food for 130.
Right.
So that like, and afterwards, like the staff or whoever else will eat, but we always want leftover because that's one thing we don't want to be like, oh, it was a buffet and I didn't get to eat.
Right.
Yeah.
They're like, we always have more. So it's like, think about it. It's like, oh, I guess that's why there was. Trust me, dude. That's not
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Like thick skin, like you said, like I've seen a bunch of guys go up, and I don't think they understand, like, I guess they do because they come to the open mics, but they get real upset if nobody's like rolled on the ground. Like everybody expects like that they're gonna go there, and everybody's gonna just roll on the floor laughing at all your jokes, and they're like you could see they're devastated. Like, and I'm like, dude, like it's okay, you know, this is practice, right?
But that's again why I said you always have to have a knowing in your head that the crowd's gonna have this reaction or gonna have that reaction, whether you're asking a question or a laugh. But that's why I'm in the audience and I have one of the loudest laughs because I know what it's like to be in those shoes. And then all of a sudden you see the comic on stage and you're just like, because they just told that joke in New York or wherever they were last night and they had a different reaction and they told that joke, and whether they said it differently or whatever the circumstance might be, but like, I expected a much bigger reaction than what just happened. And it's like that pain.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I laugh.
All right. Now I think you're a bunch of assholes that didn't laugh.
And that's what we came for.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, sometimes there's like, you know, when it was a little slow, like bad weather or something, we have like only like 3 people. Like, what do you want? What do you want? A roaring 3 people in there? Like, what do you want from it? But I don't worry. I don't worry about it because I practice at work and I don't get any laughs there either, so I'm used to it.
Right.
You're used to bombing.
They just stare at me like, is that a bit? I think so.
When I go up, even a little laugh, man, gets me pumped up. Like when I said the first line my last time I went up there, I was like, whoa, I didn't even think I was going to get any laughs. You know what I mean? I just expected it. When you heard one person chuckle, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Well, who is your favorite comedian then?
Dude, that's so question.
I mean, that's the weirdest question because it's a ton of them, right?
It's tough, man. I mean, dude, there's a bunch of different guys. I mean, I went to high school with Julian McCullough, and he was a guy that, again, never had a real job, day job or anything like that. He started hosting at the Stress Factory because he went to school at Rutgers, and then he was past the cellar when I first started comedy. And I would see him host for all these guys, and then did the warm up for the Colbert Report before, you know, when he was on Comedy Central, and then ended up moving to LA and having his own show with Whitney Cummings on
She's hilarious.
on E. And then he had 2 different shows. And so like I just look up to him so much because he was a year older than me in high school, and he does so much crowd work and so many stuff off the top of his head. It had his own hour Comedy Central special.
Right.
Giannis, who obviously I did I toured with and I managed for 2 years. It's crazy, man. But I don't know. It's hard.
Do you have an all time when, like, even old school like a Carlin or a Richard Pryor, anybody like that? Like, what Gus Carlin is kind of like what sparked your whatever comedy brain or whatever it's called. I guess Carlin kind of sparked that for you.
Kind of sparked it, yeah. Man, it's tough. I'm just a fan of comedy, man. You know, and I love watching. And I love like James Madden and stuff like that, like who can do so much crowd work and off the top of his head.
Yeah.
And so I love clever joke writing as much as I love, crowd work.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. It's hard, man. And I'm not being political.
Right.
It's
well, that's why we were talking about like maybe like because it's so hard. Like we're all going to come up with our Mount Rushmore of comedians, and that's still hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you think about it, like
5.
you asked me earlier,
now I got to narrow it down.
and I could say like Rock's my favorite or this is my favorite. Then you keep thinking like you say Dangerfield, I'm like oh shit, forgot about him. Then there's Bernie Mac. Then there's this guy. If you keep thinking about it, there's just so many favorites.
Can you pick just one though?
No, you can't.
Jer.
You can't.
How about you, Jar?
Besides me, who's your favorite?
Me. Besides me, who's your favorite?
yeah, that's tough.
I always go with Richard Pryor.
Pryor?
Yeah.
'Cause I was young enough to be there when all the movies. The Toy was my shit. That was
love
my
The
favorite
Toy and
movie
Silver
when I
Street.
was-
I'm going to Eddie Murphy though, because he was more
Say
like
it's another one.
because like Raw and what was the other one? Eddie Murphy Raw and the first one.
I don't know, but Harlem Nights is like my goat.
Right.
You know what I mean? It had all the greats in there from when we were little.
The cast.
Yeah.
Who was in? I know Red Fox was in it.
Stella Reese.
We grew up on Red Fox.
Eddie
My dad
Murphy.
loved Sanford and
Right.
Son.
Eddie Murphy, Della Reese. Just great. The whole
Right.
cast.
Right.
Anytime those guys, one of those guys pass, I always start watching videos like with Rickles.
Yeah.
And I start watching like him on Johnny Carson and all that, like, and then Dom DeLuise when he was on, like, it was just crazy. But I always go down like a rabbit hole and watch all those guys.
Yeah. I just did that to Rodney the other day, and he's just so many, one after
Oh,
another.
God.
Even when he's on the couch with Johnny, it was just a continuation of his bit. Johnny might have said 2 questions, and the rest of it was just Rodney. This,
And he gives you guys all hope because he didn't break until he was in his 50s, dude.
exactly. Yeah.
Not that you need me to come here to be a motivational.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Joe.
You guys still got a chance.
Not that we're old.
I still
They need entertainment at
Rickles,
senior activities, don't they? Yeah.
we have haven't watched it in a while, but like I still have all the Friars Club roast DVDs from like Rickles and Dean Martin and all those. They're still hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't care how old. I know I'm old. Well, whatever. I think they're all hilarious still to this day. A lot of that. Some of the comedy is like for the times you wouldn't know what's going on. But a lot of that stuff is timeless. All those good. Rickles is like one of the greatest.
For the later years, do you know who will make you piss your pants? Is Gilbert at those roasts.
Gilbert is ridiculous. And I know you.
Well, it wasn't planned. He did the last show in Royersford, and we had planned it 6 months before, not knowing we weren't going to get our lease renewed, not knowing he was going to pass shortly after. But and he killed both, and he did put a green screen behind him and put Royersford behind him, and he was like, talking about firing his agent and why is he going to be there?
Right.
Have you ever heard of Royersford? No, me neither. I can't believe I'm going to be there, but I am.
Right.
But dude, it's just wild, right?
Yeah.
It's just wild, and So I met him in a lot of the comics up at the Artie Lang show. I was up there for 2 years, taking one of the comics who was hosted, Mike Bichetti, who was hosting there, and I would go back and forth from Staten Island to the thing. I met all these guys in the green room, and him, I met him, and he was completely like just quiet, and then he goes on, and he's big, and so I went and picked, before the pandemic, I opened SoulJoels. I booked him in the Poconos, and the deal with the agent was I had to go pick him up in Massachusetts. I thought I was picking him up at another gig. I ended up picking him up at his family's summer home. It was like their lake house.
Right.
And it was cool. It had the little signs, instead of saying, like, it was just pointing, and it would say the last name. It said Gottfried this way. So I pick up his wife, who I'd met, was wearing a Late Night with Seth Meyers shirt. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I met you at, Artie Lang's show. And she's like, oh, yeah. Being very nice. Gilbert comes down. Now, this is Friday morning. We're doing one show Friday night. Saturday, Brendan Donegan is going to open for him and then drive him back to Manhattan. So he's really only staying 36 hours, right? His suitcase is bigger than his table. And another one that had all of his merch in it. And he looks at his wife and he goes, that's my shirt. And that's the reaction I had. I laughed because that's what I thought he was doing. And his wife's like, well, do you want it? And he goes, yeah. Well, what do you think what else am I going to wear this week? I don't know. Whatever's in the suitcase. Like, you already have your clothes on your back. You got to put one outfit on tonight. Whatever you're going to wear during the day, Saturday, another outfit, which may or may not be the same outfit that you wore Friday night on stage, because you're not only going to be in it for a couple hours. And that's it. Right. Then you're going home. And he's like, yeah. So he made his wife go in the other room, change his shirt, and bring it back and put it. I'm like, dude, that is the greatest thing ever. So, and it was in July, and I'm already had driven 3.5 hours from South Jersey to Massachusetts to pick him up. Now I got another 3.5, so we're only halfway. It's like a full shift.
Shit.
It was in July, so he's got shorts and a t-shirt on, and he was like, it's really cold in here. So he made me take off the air conditioning, cut it. He falls asleep. Now I'm by myself talking to no one in this hot box. Right. And I did one of the, and I just went off the side of the road a little bit and hit the ridges. And he woke up. He goes, we should stop for coffee.
Right. Yeah.
And he walks in, and this is like the level of fame he had, because he was more known for his voice and all the voiceovers he did. But I mean, dude, completely, famous. The lady behind the counter goes, oh my goodness, it's you. And I was like, I'm just going to shut up and listen and see how he handles this, because I'm not going to talk for him. Like, I want to see how he handles it. He just goes, yep, and walks to the bathroom. And she looks at me. She goes, tell me, who is that? And I'm like enjoying this way too much.
Right.
And I was like, it's Gilbert Gottfried. She goes, yes. I'm like, you wouldn't have gotten that.
Right.
Yeah. And then he signs autographs after the show. And he told me, he's like, listen, you just gotta get silver and gold Sharpies. It's the thing that goes best with my pictures. Dude, I'm freaking out. My mind's wandering. I'm like worrying about jokes and hosting and everything else. It's right before he's about to get off stage. I'm like, I forgot to get the Sharpies.
Oh my God.
Dude, I opened up to set it all up like a snake, like one of those, pops out. 24 Sharpies. He does this every weekend. Jesse, I forgot. Chris, I forgot. Just forget. And all of a sudden, before you know it, he's got 24 Sharpies. Right. But he was just trying to see, can I get 2 more?
Yeah.
Joel will get them for me. I'll get them. I'll get them. It's hilarious,
have
dude.
Fun somehow.
Rest
He probably wanted that shirt because it smelled like his wife. Wanted to take it with him.
That's a good take. Yeah. It's a good take. Rest in peace. But he destroyed. And I'm so glad that ended up being our last show.
Yeah, sorry I missed that.
And people were like, "Oh my God, he's filthy. I can't go to that show." Dude, he's a legend.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he was named like one of the top 100 comics of all time. And it's just like,
do you know the joke he does, the aristocrats?
Yeah, I
was trying to tell these guys about it. It's like the dirtiest joke ever told. And what do you know about that?
I know that a lot of people talk about it. They even did a documentary about it. And there's different versions and stuff like that. But yeah, man, he's great.
I was just curious if he did it. I wasn't,
Yeah, no, I mean, he did a lot of new stuff. He did a couple of the hits. But he murdered. Dude.
Right, I'm sure. He kills.
Yeah.
All right.
Another one we lost, of course, one of my favorites, Norm Macdonald. You ever meet Norm?
God, yeah.
Never met him, but knew a lot. And I was actually working on a date and talking to the agent about getting him. Shit. He was definitely on my wish list. But talking to people that know him, like, he was one of the guys, like, he made comics laugh.
Right.
And like comics that say that he's the funniest guy.
Yes.
Just the way they talked about him. Like, he was just a great guy. And I know guys that wrote for him. He had a show on Comedy Central, and just so funny, man.
About Saget.
Never met him.
Lost him too.
Yeah, but they said with Norm Macdonald was you never knew he was sick,
Right.
and every time someone would die, you'd be like, oh, I never knew he was sick.
Right.
And meanwhile, he was talking about himself,
Yeah.
which is the craziest thing.
That is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You mentioned wish list. Is there like the guy that you're like, I would do anything to get that guy at my club? Got anybody like that you?
Oh man, I don't know, man. I'm working on. I don't know. Yeah, it's. I don't know. Yeah, it's. We'll have to figure that out.
Okay.
That's a good question. You put me on the spot. Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to see what happens, man. I would love to get them all.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure it'll all come through. Like because I am all into comedy. The names just that I think of who I've seen there and who comes there, it just blows my mind, dude. It's just that mostly that they're coming so close to my house. You know, what I mean? I don't have to go to Philly or Reading has a lot of shows or Bethlehem or whatever. They're coming to my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like when you were at the Westover, we seen Dice. He was a mile from my house.
Right.
Andrew Dice Clay was 1 mile from my house.
Yeah.
Don't believe
And that shit just blows my mind. You hardly remember the show.
Oh yeah, I was a little bit wasted.
Well, dude, and the funniest thing about that was it was the first Friday in January of 2021, and my phone, and I already had Eleanor Carrigan, who was engaged and open for him for years, was like, hey, do you mind if I give Dice your number? And I'm like, yeah, my number is on every flyer,
Right.
and get phone calls, all that. What's one more? And then all of a sudden, Friday, and I just booked Brewer, and the agent was like, Dice isn't traveling because he's a germaphobe, which is true. Then my phone goes off, and it says Beverly Hills. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to answer this phone. It's be like, have you updated your car's warranty?
Yeah.
I'm like, this is BS. Beverly Hills. And he goes, Joel, it's Dice. Did Eleanor tell you I was going to call, or is this a surprise? Dude, I want to be like, I'm in the middle of a show right now. It's not a good time for me. Dude, I ran so fast out of the dome.
Right.
And we hadn't made money November, December, and January. And he was the first comic that brought us out of the red into the black.
Oh, really?
And we did Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It was cool because it was James Mattern's birthday that Thursday. And we ended up going to the Trap Tavern. It was because there was no, that was the only kitchen during the pandemic that was open that late after a show.
Right.
Yeah, it was crazy. You're like, 10 o'clock, what is it, 2 in the morning? You're like, I just want to get a meal.
Right.
And they sit down, and the bartender was like, brings us our drinks. And he goes, how was the show? And he walked away, and I go, did anybody tell them that we're from SoulJoels? And he's like, no, I just said it was James Mattern birthday, but that's it. Like, we're just not who he is, just we want to celebrate my friend's birthday. How late his kitchen open?
Right.
So he comes over. I'm like, dude, did you know we were from SoulJoels? He goes, no, I didn't have to. He goes, everybody in this restaurant's from SoulJoels.
Oh, yeah?
He goes, we were packed on a random Tuesday and Wednesday. We haven't been packed since 2019.
No shit.
Since before the pandemic on a Tuesday and Wednesday. We didn't know why. And when we found out, it was because of he goes, we've been following your club, and we appreciate your business. And we're like, dude, it was like 12 minutes away.
Right.
And we were affecting them. And it's like, that's how much like we helped other small businesses. And that was like a really cool feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Dice was crazy. And dude, it was snowing. And I had to pay him in advance. And I was like, oh my God, like if we had to cancel the show or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, we're doing it. And it was like a snow globe, like snowing in the back. And he's up there all bundled up. And I'm like, dude, he's a trooper, man.
Yeah.
He's wild.
It was awesome, man.
He's a wild boy.
I was so happy he did the nursery rhymes at the end.
Oh, and that's the only time he lets people tape them.
Okay.
It's because he's told them thousands of times.
Yeah. I told him thousands of times too. That's how I got to ninth grade.
Do you hear the explosion when he does them?
Yeah.
People go nuts like they lost their minds. You feel like you're at a rock concert.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like he's a rock star. He is the first rock star comic.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And he has his hits. Like that's his
thing.
Mother Goose is his Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah. This was fun, boys.
Yeah, man. what do you got coming up that you want to tell the people about?
So this is crazy, man. This is all coming together. But the last Saturday in January,
Okay.
we have a cardio kickboxing class.
Okay.
Then we have the drag brunch.
Okay.
All right. And then we have later in the afternoon, different room, all ages magic show. And I tell people, John Cassidy's one of the best. He's been doing it for like 30 years. He's like a Disney movie. Everything he's saying is for the adults. It keeps the adults' attention. And then he's a Guinness Book World Record for the fastest balloons. He blows them up and does all this stuff. That's all for the kids.
Okay.
But he keeps generations from grandparents to parents to kids entertained.
Right.
Yeah.
For an hour and a half himself, no openers. He does everything.
Right.
It's amazing. This is like the 5th time he's been at our place.
Okay.
Then Vic DiBattista.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Yeah, Vic.
And then the Hot Sauce Junkies with CJ Santangelo is a band. They're performing after that. Anybody that buys a ticket to see Vic, that's the after party.
Oh, no shit.
So we got 5 events in one night.
Right.
And that's what I'm most proud of. It's like utilizing that space, and it's like no matter what you're into, if you're not into comedy, you have music and magic and drag brunch, and we're gonna work out for the New Year's resolutions. We got that. And she's like one of those things. You talk about all the comics that have made it that I've worked with. This girl, Christina Dorner, she has a place in Sellersville.
Okay.
But it's her. That's where she lives, and she started her own studio, home studio in her basement.
Okay.
But my place was the first place she did a beach workout over the pandemic, and then she did it in. She made it on the Today Show, and her followers tripled. She's got like 60,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Okay.
So she did her first one in November. We did step aerobics like Richardson. It was old school. She had people from New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, Michigan, and Toronto, like Canada.
Right.
And I'm like, all just to do this. Dude, a lady from Michigan goes, I'm missing my anniversary with my husband right now.
For step aerobics.
I'm like, is this about to be some single white female?
Yeah.
Like, shit, like crazy shit.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm being in the same room with her. I'm like, I can't believe we're having this conversation.
Right.
But so she's doing it, and it's like, it's so cool, man, to put this all together. And then Ben Bailey, we just set another date with him.
I saw that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cash Cab.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So he was the weekend before Gilbert. So he did the second to last, and he wants to come back. So it's been a year and a half. But I told him, like, all your friends have been here. He was like, what'd they say about me? And he forgot that, like, I had this whole spread. And he was like, what is this? And I go, it's your rider. And he goes, oh my God, it was the first show he did since before the pandemic. He had forgotten about it.
Oh, right.
And he had all these juices. It was so much that the ingredients, that Wegmans had 2 different juices with all the ingredients, but I had to go to a special place to get it. Mm-hmm. And it was just to see. It was like the infamous red M&Ms. Like, he just wanted to see if, like, I cared. He goes, you're such a good dude. He goes, I didn't even know. Like, it just made that impression, so he wants to come back.
That's awesome.
And tickets are flying, man.
that off.
But he goes, who's here next weekend? And I go, Gilbert. He had the best Gilbert story. So he did a celebrity cash cab.
Okay.
And he said tears rolling down his face. Gilbert was just making him laugh all day, more than anybody. But he was so fucking filthy that he had to go, dude, Gilbert, could we just drive around the block again? And we do that again, this time less language.
Right.
He goes, you think I give a flying fuck if this ends up on TV, Ben?
Yeah.
And he was just like, I'm not doing it. Like, he just, again, that was like a car. That was just for him.
Right,
He
yeah,
was just
yeah,
doing it because out of a favor, because he's friends with him.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, that is so funny. And it was like, that's
awesome.
what I love. That before the pandemic, during the pandemic, that's what I miss most. Is like this. I miss this. Like, just sitting around and hearing those stories. Cause it's like, it's priceless just to hear stories from these comics.
Yeah.
And doing the road or doing shows or having relationships. And you're like, dude, if I wouldn't have said that, he would have never said that story. No, that story was so priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And then we got Brewer coming back.
Brewer coming
man.
back.
It's gonna be great.
Love Brewer.
Yep. So go to SoulJoels.com, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, and we appreciate you guys, man.
Right.
And appreciate you letting us use the Melody Room to do the open mics, man. It's a
Yeah.
good time.
Yeah.
Always a good time. Tuesday nights. So,
We have 4 walls and indoor plumbing. Come check us out.
That's all you need.
and an open bar. or not an
Yeah.
open bar.
Open bar.
That sounds like it's free.
Free.
No, he has a
That's right.
full bar.
Full bar. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm
No, I
sorry.
get it, man.
Let me correct that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
People
the drinks
come in,
are
"Where's my
reasonably
drink?"
priced,
Right.
believe me.
Yeah, believe me.
All right, well, Joel, thanks for joining us and being our very first guest. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And
Huge.
all right, folks, we'll see you up at SoulJoels Tuesday night, open mic. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for subscribing. And we just broke 100 the other day. We want to thank everybody. Our team's working hard, trying to get us our names out there, and
116.
tell your Crumb friends to check us out. And all right, we'll see you next week.
Later.